Most people think they're stuck because they lack motivation. They tell themselves, I'll start when I feel ready, when I have more energy, when motivation finally kicks in. And so they wait. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and the thing they know they should start remains untouched. Not because they don't care, but because they're waiting for the wrong signal. Motivation is not the beginning of action. Action is the beginning of motivation. And once you understand this, procrastination starts to lose its power. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. You are not unmotivated. You are overwhelmed. When a task feels too big, too unclear, or too emotionally loaded, the mind looks for relief, not progress relief. So it scrolls, it delays, it distracts, and then it tells you a story. I just don't feel motivated today. But lack of motivation is rarely the real problem. The real problem is friction. And friction doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as tiredness, as confusion, as not the right time. But underneath all of that is a simple truth. The gap between where you are and where you need to start feels too wide. So you stay where you are. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Avoid discomfort. James Clear talks about this when he explains why habits fail. He says behavior is less about motivation and more about making the first step easy enough to begin. When something feels heavy, the mind resists it, not because it's lazy, but because it's trying to conserve energy. Your brain is designed to avoid unnecessary effort. So when you wait for motivation, you're asking the brain to do something it's not wired to do. You're asking it to generate energy before movement. That's backwards. It's like waiting to feel warm before you start running. But anyone who's ever gone for a run on a cold morning knows the warmth comes from the movement. You don't wait for it. You create it. Think about the last time you felt motivated. It probably didn't come out of nowhere. It came after you started, after you opened the document, after you stood up, after you took the first small step. Motivation followed motion, not the other way around. Sadhguru puts this in a very direct way. He says, if you wait for the right mood, you will remain stuck in cycles, because moods are unstable. Energy rises when you move it. Clarity comes when you engage with life, not when you avoid it. Waiting to feel ready is a subtle form of avoidance. It feels reasonable. It sounds responsible, but it keeps you frozen, and the mind is clever. It will give you 100 reasons why today isn't the day, why conditions aren't ideal, why you need more information first, but those reasons aren't wisdom. They're resistance wearing a disguise. Real readiness doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from choosing to begin despite imperfect ones. This is why procrastination feels so frustrating. You know what to do. You even want to do it. But something inside resists starting. And the longer you wait, the heavier the task becomes in your mind. Not because the task changed, but because avoidance added pressure. Every day you don't start, you add another layer of weight, another layer of guilt, another layer of I should have done this already, until the task that once seemed manageable now feels impossible. Not because of the task itself, but because of the story you've built around it. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, do I feel motivated? Start asking, what is the smallest action I can take right now? Not the perfect action, not the complete plan, just the next doable step. Open the file, write one sentence, put on your shoes, set a 5-minute timer, This lowers resistance. And resistance, not laziness, is what keeps people stuck. The goal isn't to feel different before you act. The goal is to act so small that your feelings don't get a vote. When the step is tiny enough, the mind doesn't have time to argue. It just moves. There's also an emotional layer most people ignore. Procrastination is often self-protection. Starting means confronting uncertainty. Starting means risking imperfection. Starting means facing the possibility that it won't go as planned. Waiting feels safer, but safety without movement slowly becomes regret. And regret is heavier than failure, because failure at least means you tried. Regret means you never gave yourself the chance. It means you chose comfort over growth, and now you have to live with the question of what could have been. James Clear explains that identity follows action. You don't become productive and then act. You act, and then your identity shifts. Each small action is a vote. A vote for the person who shows up. A vote for the person who starts even without motivation. And those votes compound. One day of showing up doesn't transform you, but 100 days, 1,000 small starts, that builds something motivation alone never could. It builds trust in yourself, in your ability to follow through, in the person you're becoming. This is why starting today matters more than starting big. Momentum doesn't require intensity. It requires continuity. A small action done consistently outperforms a perfect plan that never begins. Sadhguru often reminds people that life responds to involvement. When you engage, energy rises to meet you. When you wait, energy stagnates. Motivation is not something you wait for. It is something you generate through movement. Life doesn't reward those who wait for perfect alignment. It rewards those who move imperfectly, uncertainly, but consistently. The universe meets you where you are, but only if you take the first step. Stillness invites more stillness. Movement invites momentum. If you're listening to this and feeling called out, that's not a bad sign. It means there's something in you that's ready. Not ready in the emotional sense, ready in the honest sense. Ready to stop negotiating with resistance. That discomfort you feel right now, that's not a sign to wait. That's a sign you're at the edge of growth. The mind will always try to pull you back to what's familiar, but familiar doesn't mean right, and comfortable doesn't mean alive. Here's something simple and practical. For the next thing you've been putting off, commit to just 5 minutes. Not to finish, not to succeed, just to start. 5 minutes bypasses fear. It bypasses perfectionism. It bypasses the need for motivation. And once you start, you may stop or you may continue. Either way, you win, because you broke the waiting pattern. And that pattern is the real enemy, not the task, not your circumstances, not even your lack of energy. The pattern of waiting is what keeps people trapped for years. Breaking it once makes breaking it again easier. That's how change actually works, not in dramatic leaps, but in quiet, repeated choices. This is how momentum is built, quietly, imperfectly. Today, not someday. If reflections like this help you take action instead of waiting, you might consider liking the video or subscribing. Not as pressure, but as a reminder that progress is built through small, honest starts. Here's what I want to leave you with. You don't need a surge of motivation to change your life. You need a willingness to begin even when motivation is absent. Because motivation is not the engine. Action is. Start small. Start messy. Start today. And let motivation catch up to you on the way. Because it will. It always does. For those who refuse to wait,